Welcome to Mrs. E English Skills. I'm Mrs. E and today we're looking at Functional Skills English Level 2, Session 1, Reading and Understanding Text. Let's start with how you'll be assessed. For Functional Skills English Level 2, there are 3 assessments: speaking and listening, reading and writing. A closer look at assessment reveals that for speaking and listening, there will be an internally assessed presentation and internally assessed discussion. This just means that your tutor in class will mark these 2 pieces of assessment. For the reading, you will have an external exam, and this just means that you will sit an exam either online or on paper, and this will be sent off to the exam board to be marked. And this is the same for the writing exam. So let's start with reading. But how do we read text? Well, there are 3 reading strategies: skimming, scanning, and reading in detail. But what do they mean? When we skim a text, we're quickly looking over the surface of the text to decide if it's interesting. When we scan a text, we're looking for specific information without reading or understanding every word, and we use this technique for locate and retrieve questions. And when we read in detail, we read every word to gain a complete understanding of the text. For most questions in the reading paper, we will be looking at scanning. So we'll be scanning for the answer, looking for specific information. However, when we've scanned and found the section of the text that relates to the question, we need to read this section in detail to ensure that we give the correct answer. An example. Have a read of this text. Pause the video to do so before I present a question to you. Let's look at a question. What caused the fight? Now, in order to answer this question, we need to scan for the correct section. So if we highlight this section, you'll see that the fight was caused by the price of an ice cream. However, what about the price caused that fight? In this section, it talks about the cost of the strawberry ripple. And in this section, it talks about how Malcolm did not back down from the price of £3. So therefore, the answer isn't the price of an ice cream. It's more specific than that. Because when we've read in detail, we can see that Greg thought he was being overcharged. And that is what caused the fight. Have another read of the text. Pause the video here to do so before I present another question. For this question, it says, when was the fight that was believed to be drug related? Pause the video to have a go before I reveal the answer. Did you scan for the right section? This is the section that talks about the fight that was believed to be drug related. If we read it, we'll see that it says the incident took place on the 27th of July, the day before 2 other young men were taken to hospital following another fight believed to be drugs related. If we look at the placement of the comma, this is how we would read it. The incident took place on the 27th of July, the day before 2 other young men. Now, if that was a full stop, we would read it as the incident took place on the 27th of July. The day before, 2 other young men. We'd also need a comma after before. Because of that comma, That means the answer is the 28th of July. That is because when it mentions the incident took place on the 27th of July, that is talking about the ice cream fight. But because of the comma, that tells us that the 27th of July is the day before the other fight. So if the 27th of July is the day before the drug-related fight, that must mean the drug-related fight is the day after, which is the 28th of July. If you're not too sure, just rewind the video and play that again. Think about the placement of the comma. Let's have a look at another example. Pause the video here to read the text before I reveal the question. So here is the question. Have a little read and pause the video to write down your answers before I reveal the answers. Let's look at the answers. So, it was started by immigrants to Delton, and you can see where the text states this by where I've highlighted. It was a parade with costumes and steel drums, and it took place in the summertime. Do you have any more answers, or do you have different answers? If so, it might be because you've misread the question. It's so important that every question in the reading exam and the writing exam, you read in detail. Maybe read it twice just to make sure you fully understood what it's asking for. This question states the Delton Carnival started 35 years ago. Which of these statements was correct at the time? So that means which of these statements was correct 35 years ago. Once we've understood what the question is asking for, we can clearly see that it wasn't a multicultural arts festival 35 years ago, and it didn't have nearly 1 million visitors 35 years ago. It was also never held in Trinidad. So when we talk about reading in detail, we're also talking about reading between the lines. Some questions require you to form your own conclusions rather than write answers word for word from the text. Locate and retrieve requires you to find something in the text and write it down as your answer. However, for answers that require you to read between the lines, this will not be apparent. When you are jumping to your own conclusions, this is called inference. You need to make your own judgments based on what's written. For example, if someone told you they had a horrific experience in a restaurant, you might assume the food was not very nice. That is you inferring the situation. Let's look at a sample exam question. This question is taken from a Pearson Level 2 Functional Skills reading paper. What are 2 implications of having a poor network of contacts? Support your answers with evidence from the text. So the text is on the left-hand side here, and you'll see it's worth 4 marks. That means you get a mark for an implication and a mark for evidence to support the implication you've chosen. The answers will not be written directly in the text, so it will not say one implication of having a poor network of contacts is. Rather, there will be evidence that you will use to jump to your own conclusion about what that implication is. But first, let's find the relevant section of the text. So this is the part of the text that's relevant because it's the part that talks about contacts. Pause the video here to have a go at finding evidence and writing implications based on that evidence before I start to reveal my answers. Okay, so I've found 3 pieces of evidence that I could use. Success in the music industry relies more on who you know. Connections you make as a band manager will help your band. And it does not have to mean the end of your career as a band manager if you have successfully built up a network of influential contacts. So looking at my 3 pieces of evidence, remember you only need 2 for the answer. Success in the music industry relies more on who you know. Well, this suggests if you don't know anyone, then you won't be successful. So the implication is you won't be successful, and the evidence is success in the music industry relies more on who you know. Connections you make as a band manager will help your band. So this suggests if you don't have connections, you won't be able to help your band. And it doesn't have to mean the end of your career as a band manager if you've successfully built up a network of influential contacts. Well, this suggests that if you haven't, then you'll have a lack of employment prospects if the band falls apart. Remember, you only need 2 implications and 2 pieces of evidence to support that. And as I wrote in an earlier slide, the first slide that had this question, an implication is a consequence. How did you do? Thank you for watching. Don't forget to check out my other videos to keep improving your English, and also keep an eye on this playlist for more videos to help you with your Functional Skills English Level 2 exams. If you've got a question, just add a comment and I'll try my best to answer. As always, I'm Mrs. E, and I'll see you soon.